I've almost turned down massive opportunities because I felt like I wasn't confident enough for them. If you're someone who's heard that you're too quiet or you need to speak up more as a student or a professional, you might have internalized this feedback so much that you've allowed it to affect how you show up, the things that you know you're capable of doing, and even some of the ambitions that you have. My name is Itoan, and I'm a chemical engineer with close to 6 years in the industry. I'm also a speaker and a poet. And in this video, I'm gonna be looking at calm confidence from the perspective of engineering, because I think confidence is something that should be built. I believe that we all have that gift of being confident, but sometimes if it doesn't show up when we want it to, it usually means that we need to do some work to actually build it up, especially into something that it's not gonna break under pressure. So here are 4 lessons that I've learned about calm confidence from an engineering perspective. The first lesson is that you're probably asking the wrong question. I know whenever you're about to do something, you're probably asking, am I confident enough? Am I ready for this? Do I look or sound like someone who can do this? And while those are all valid questions, most of the time you never really answer, yes, I'm confident enough, or yes, I can do this, because you've probably overthought about it. I want you to reframe that question to, instead of saying, am I confident enough? Ask the question of what the situation requires of you. If it's a job, what does this job interview require from me? What does this project presentation require from me? And when you start to look at it like that, there are certain criteria that you know that you should meet in order to be ready for whatever the situation is. I'll give an example. The first time I did a research competition where I had to explain some of the research work that I did, I asked the same question right before the competition. I had already done the work, I had already done the experiments, I had reviewed the data, I knew my project in and out. But why was I still asking, am I ready enough? Am I extroverted enough to win this, right? It's probably that deep thinking coming into play. And when you think hard enough, you're probably gonna find 1 or 2 reasons to doubt. So instead of asking that question in that moment, what I should do is ask the question of what is required in this competition in order for me to be successful, right? And in that case, it would have been, am I able to explain these engineering concepts in simple enough terms for my audience, which my audience was going to be people that weren't engineers, right? So am I able to explain it in layman's terms for them to understand? Am I able to be concise within the time frame that I've been given? Am I able to trust the research that I've already done in order to answer follow-up questions? So those 3 requirements have become the new questions that I need to answer, right? And if I'm able to meet those requirements, then I will be ready, and the confidence will flow from that. And so at the end of the day, it's really not about performing or becoming louder. It's really asking yourself what value you're bringing. How useful can I be in this situation? And what does this situation require from me? The second lesson is that you're waiting for the perfect conditions before you act. You're probably waiting until you feel less shy or you feel less timid about whatever the situation is. And you're saying, when I stop overthinking, I'll go ahead and do it because then I'll know I'm ready. But in all reality, is that ever gonna happen? Are you really going to stop overthinking? Those perfect conditions at the end of the day almost always exist in textbooks, right? A huge chunk of my career has been spent as a test engineer. And in that role, the main idea is to test the product to make sure that it's doing all that we need it to do. And if we find issues, we make sure it's fixed before customers have to encounter the product, right? And most of the time, we have to create the scenario. We had to create the conditions in order to test this product. Those conditions were usually not the perfect conditions. They were usually not what the product would actually see in real life, but they were close enough. And sometimes we would even test them in what we called worst case scenario. We would put so much pressure on this product in order to understand how much weight it can withstand. We need to start learning to create those scenarios for ourselves. Instead of waiting for the perfect condition in order to, say, speak, or the perfect condition in order to lead a team, create that condition for yourself, right? You could join Toastmasters to practice more on your public speaking, or you could, join a book club if you need to get better at reading. You could even volunteer to lead a group discussion or lead a meeting at work. All of those things, I see it as creating your file, your evidence file, your data file. And you can go back to those experiences to say, oh, this is how I performed. In order to actually meet the requirements of this circumstance, I need to do better in this. But now you have that evidence. You're no longer guessing what it's gonna look like or feel like to be confident. It's just something that you already have in front of you. You know exactly what to work on. And working on that is usually gonna translate into confidence. And so when you look at it this way, it's really not about becoming more extroverted. It's about showing up anyway, whether or not you feel like it. The third lesson is that you're probably relying only on motivation and you don't have a system in place. Let me explain. On a Sunday night, for example, you go ahead and watch all of those motivational videos, kind of pump yourself up for the week, but then on Monday morning, you have really low energy, right? And suddenly, all of that motivation goes out the window. That's because 9 times out of 10, systems will always beat motivation. And when I say systems, you don't have to think about it as something so technical or intense, right? It really could be something very simple. But the reason why you don't want to rely so much on motivation is, take for example, you want to start going to the gym and you want to become someone who's fit and strong. If you only go when you have the energy for it, you probably might not go ever. If you're me, you might not go ever. Maybe you go once a week, but if you're like me, you probably just won't go until you feel that high boost of motivation and energy. But that's not the right way to go, right? If you're ambitious, which I know that you are if you're watching this video, and you really have things that you want to accomplish, that you know you're capable of, you don't want to leave it to chance. You don't want to rely on something as fickle and roller coaster like as emotions, right? And so I want you to think about it this way. Create for yourself something simple, like a 3-step system to do whatever you need to do. Let's say you're going to a career fair or a networking event. You just create that system of what you're gonna do before, during, and afterwards, right? So it's almost like a protocol that your brain knows that it should follow, especially when you don't feel that high boost of energy. Before I go to this networking event, I'm gonna write down a list of companies that I'm gonna be talking to. And so you have a starting point. You're not just going there and like figuring it out on the spot. You write your next step, which is when I get there and actually get to talking to people, I'm gonna try to talk maybe for 3 to 5 minutes and maybe ask them certain questions that I've already written down ahead of time. So that removes the fear of not having something to say to whoever you're speaking to. That's step 2. And then step 3 is after the event, I'm going to make sure that I reach back out to all of the people that I talked to within the next 24 hours. And in that way, you already created a system that's gonna work for you, whether or not you have a high energy in the moment. And that's how we should look at opportunities. We shouldn't look at it as, oh, I'll do it when I'm motivated. It should be, I have a system for this, and so I'm gonna do it. And I know you're reserved, you're calm, like most of the time you don't have all of that high energy. But that is okay. Take for example, after this video, I'm gonna go take a nap because this is requiring a lot from me right now. If you know, you know. But understand yourself so much that your personality doesn't limit you. Instead, you take advantage of it and use it to the best of your ability to say, I know that I'm gonna be tired after this, so I'm gonna make time and not schedule anything after this period so that I can rest and recharge and recuperate for my next high energy moment. Yourself for not having the energy. Work around it. You know you best, so don't let other people talk you down because of your personality. The last lesson, number 4, is that you're probably building your confidence on a foundation that is not gonna stand under pressure. So a lot of the times we think that we're capable or we're confident because we've been able to do something, or we had a good day, or someone affirmed us, right? Or something that we worked on went well, or we get approval from other people. This is all good. But if that's the only foundation that you lay your confidence on, that's too vulnerable. When you have a bad day, when you get that rejection, whenever someone doesn't receive your message the way you would like, all of a sudden your confidence is shaken. All of a sudden you're not as capable as you thought you were. And it's almost like building something on sand. It might stand for a little while, but when things get shaky, it's gonna all come crumbling down. And you don't want that for your confidence, especially when people are already telling you that you're too quiet, you need to speak up more. There's already all of these things going on. For a long time, I used to place my worth on my achievements, in engineering and the things that I've done with speaking and my creative abilities. But I started to understand that if I focus just on those things, whenever things don't come out the way I want, I would usually feel like I'm no longer good enough. When I look back at my life and see, during hard times, what I have leaned on that was unshakable, for me, it's my faith. It's my faith in God, really. And how I know that I am made on purpose for a purpose and that I have a calling, that will always get me back on track whenever all of the other things fail. Because that's one thing that I know will not fail. So you need to find your value, find your identity on something that is strong enough to give you confidence when everything else won't. And so I hope after these lessons, it is clear that you need to start asking the right questions depending on the situation. You need to learn to create those conditions for yourself and stop waiting for the perfect conditions to happen. Create that evidence file and start working on it. You need to stop relying just on motivation. Create that system that will keep you grounded and ready for every circumstance. Build your identity on something that's not going to shake when all else fails. If this resonated with you, if you are a quiet thinker, a deep thinker, maybe an overthinker, and you've been told that you're too quiet and you need to speak up more, and you're really someone who's ambitious and wants to achieve more outside of just inspiration and motivation, stay tuned to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and do me a favor, drop a like and a comment and share which of the 4 lessons resonated with you best. And I'll be happy to say more in the comments as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.
How you see